But of course, Sig Sauer is not the only ones who have been accused recently of playing dirty tricks with politics. So recently, Silencer Central got themselves in a little bit of hot water over a lobbying disclosure that was released, I believe, first by the Gun Collective. Here we see a report back from 2024 in the amount of $50,000 for the specific lobbying issue of develop and support suppressor tax stamp conservation legislation. Now, of course, this caused a massive firestorm in terms of people blowing back against Silencer Central and accusing them of trying to gut the Hearing Protection Act. Now, on the one hand, I can believe that there are people within the silencer manufacturing industry that don't want to see their business model change. Right now, silencers are a low volume, high margin product. If they were to be removed from the NFA and deregulated, treated simply as firearms, like the Hearing Protection Act in its pure form proposes to do, then that whole business model would be upended. You would go to a high volume, low margin business model. And I could imagine that a company would not want to have to deal with all of that. And probably one of the biggest ones, Silencer Central, would be an obvious choice for it. However, going back to the lobbying statement and disclosure, it's from the year 2024. I believe this is before the Hearing Protection Act was actually tabled. Now, the statement from Silencer Central was that the lobbying efforts were to remove the money from that $200 tax stamp going to the ATF and instead push that towards wildlife conservation efforts. And reading this particular text, develop and support suppressor tax stamp conservation legislation, I could almost believe that, because remember, these are the kinds of documents that bean counters and people who are not in public relations, media, or PR are writing. These are things that are not necessarily supposed to be seen by the public, and I'm sure whoever wrote this assumed that nobody was ever going to actually read what was filled out in box number 16 there. I think that's just what happened. And I can accept Silencer Central's explanation. However, I do think that they could have worded what they came out with just a little bit better, just a little bit. To quote Brandon Maddox, Silencer Central is closely monitoring the ongoing congressional hearings surrounding the Hearing Protection Act. We have always been vocal supporters of the HPA, as well as the current proposed provision of a $0 tax stamp. Our priority has always been and will continue to be advocating for deregulation and Second Amendment rights while supporting any win we can get for our customers regarding their firearm and accessory ownership rights along the way. Regardless of the ever-changing regulatory landscape, we remain focused on delivering exceptional service and standing by the community we are proud to be a part of. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Cool. But I wouldn't have advised that we say either nothing or that the proposed provision of a $0 tax stamp is something that they do not like, but if it's the only thing that they can get through, then okay, we'll take that win. I mean, you do have to understand there is a certain level of realpolitik to go on, especially with these kinds. Sometimes you do need to take baby steps, but right now we are in a position where we could drive through a big step forward with the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act. However, for the moment, it looks like the Short Act has been defeated. We'll see if it can get back into the big, beautiful bill. But the Hearing Protection Act, at least last I checked, was still fully intact and back inside of the big, beautiful bill, making it a little bit bigger and a little bit more beautiful. But when it comes to things that were going on, remember in 24, when Biden was still in the White House, it wouldn't surprise me if Silencer Central was supporting a effort that would take money away from the ATF and give it to wildlife conservation. But I really do think they needed to be coming out and saying, hey, this is what we were doing back then, and this is what we want to see right now, which is the Hearing Protection Act going through unchanged. We will take any win we can get, but we would like the Hearing Protection Act to go through unchanged. I think that's more or less what they needed to have said from the jump, and this extra wordy talking about the $0 tax stamp idea, yada, 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 just muddies the water and makes the message even confusing, giving the rumors more breathing room, essentially. But I would like to hear your particular thoughts on Silencer Central. Do you guys believe them? I'm 50-50. I don't see a smoking gun that they were the rumored lobbying party that was trying to hold up or change the Hearing Protection Act to have that $0 tax stamp provision. I don't see the proof of that yet, so I'm completely up in the air and am more than willing to be convinced by evidence one way or the other. But let me know your particular thoughts on that in the comments section below. And finally, we have a little bit of a humorous article here. Walmart got fined for shipping realistic toy guns to New York. Oh, good lord. What's next? They're going to fine people, arrest them for finger guns? I mean, come on, New York. Quoting from the article, New York Attorney General Letitia James, hi Letitia, said that retail giant's online store shipped at least 9 such toys to the state. Oh no, 9 realistic toy guns entered your state. The horror! Think of the crimes that people will commit with these realistic toy guns that, have an orange tip on them. And, yeah, don't exactly look like a real gun. That tip. Why? I mean, honestly, New York is one of those states, much like California, that I will probably never be able to step foot in because they are so arse backwards when it comes to these particular laws. I mean, New York has tried and convicted someone, sent them to prison for multiple years, and he is still in jail right now for exercising his Second Amendment rights and manufacturing a gun at home. Was he violent? Was he a felon? Was he somebody who tried to rob someone or sell these guns illegally that he manufactured himself? No, he followed the letter of the law at the federal level and at the state level, but they decided that no, there is no such thing as Second Amendment rights within New York. This is ridiculous. And as humorous as I find this particular article as just one more demonstration of New York's cavernous inability to respect the Second Amendment, especially when it comes to the right of self-defense and the ability to take care of yourself and your loved ones, I cannot help but remind people that these are petty tyrants who will take away your freedom, who will fine you and imprison you for something as simple as a slightly realistic toy gun. These are people who don't seem to get it through their heads that I can't carry around Officer Bob in my pocket. And when somebody is trying to mug, assault, or otherwise kill me or my loved ones, I can't carry around Officer Bob and have him just magically pop out of my pocket. No, the police are going to be minutes away, not right around the corner, and even if they are right around the corner, the time that it takes them to round that corner could very well be enough to either end or irrevocably change my life or the lives of the people that I care about. And any infringement upon the ability to make sure that something like that does not happen is unacceptable. Truly, I think that people need to understand that these states are taking away fundamental rights. A fundamental right to your self-preservation and the preservation of those that you care about. It's a fundamental right. It's something that we put into the Constitution in the Second Amendment for a reason. And simply because these petty tyrants don't like it, doesn't mean that they get to step in and stop you from exercising that. The federal government needs to go back in and they need to put the boot down on these states. They need to make it clear to states like New York, California, Hawaii, and apparently even Colorado that these kinds of things really are not acceptable under the Second Amendment. And quite frankly, one of the things that I would love to see from the Department of Justice and the Trump admin in general, if they are really, really serious about actually upholding the Second Amendment, is going into these states and really starting to go after them for their ridiculous Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment laws. I want to see the federal government start going after these states on civil rights violations. That is something that they could do, and it is something that they should do. So I would encourage people to go out, get in touch with your representatives and your particular Congress critters. Let them know that you want to see the federal government take action on these kinds of things. There needs to be a groundswell of support for not just the Hearing Protection Act I was talking about earlier, but the Short Act and any other pro-2A bills and any other pro-2A initiatives at the federal level that will make it clear to all 50 states that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. But hey, that's just one dude ranting and rambling into the void. But that does wrap up everything for today's topics. Let me know your thoughts on any of the things that we went over today, from the forced reset triggers and the rare breed, to the ATF's actions, to the Hearing Protection Act and Silencer Central. Let me know your thoughts, and be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you would be so kind. Our next goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers, and we would love to have you along for the journey as we grow. But until next time, I'm Anders, E.T. Herzberg, hoping to see you all again real soon.